What is going on, guys? It is MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we have a really interesting topic for you guys. We're going to be talking about the hardest part of the game, that is the roadblock, the wall for most players for sure, hands down, and it's something that people kind of talk about individually, but there's not a lot of group talk about this, so I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention so we can kind of start a dialogue here in the comment section to kind of get your guys' feedback and see where all of you are standing on this. So some people might be thinking and assuming I am talking about Platinum Arena. While I do believe that is in fact a talking point, the problem is too few players have access to it, not only because it's limited to 300 players, because of course more than 300 players are going to be pushing for it on each reset. The main issue is some players that can compete for Platinum simply don't have the opportunity to, based on when it is and when the reset time is. It's in the middle of the night for some people, it's during their workday for other people, so ideally you would want a rotating schedule on this. I've brought this up to plarium before, and we all know that in the game already they can do rotating schedules. So until that happens, I cannot consider Platinum Arena something that is a wall for a lot of players that you can't just spend your money to get through. So with that being said, what the heck am I going to be talking about today? I think it's pretty easy to assume that I am going to indeed be talking about the Doom Tower. In my opinion, and in many players' opinions, the Doom Tower is the universal wall for almost every single player because of how niche it is in regards to how many specific champions you need to complete each rotation, every single boss, and secret rooms. Don't even get me started on that. That's a whole other ball game, but this is content that you cannot just spend your way through. You can have every champion in the world, but if you don't have the gear to back it up, and we all know the lottery system on champions, it's the same for gear, if not even worse for gear. So with all of that being said, I really do want to dedicate a video to kind of deep dive into this and see what all of your guys' opinions are on this, and if you agree on specific walls that I'm going to mention here, if they do align with your current progress. So the first thing I do want to talk about is, in my opinion, the 3 hardest bosses that I've seen people constantly complaining about, and I don't mean complaining in a negative way, but complaining as far as how difficult it is for the general player base's roster. So the first one has to be the Celestial Griffin. I think a lot of players really struggle with that boss. It is one of the newer ones to enter the rotation, so I can understand. It hasn't been in the game as long as the others, but still I do believe the unique mechanics of it make it rather hard to deal with, even if you have all of the proper champions, coming down to speed tuning when you're using your cooldowns, so on and so forth. So I would definitely have that as one of my probably top 3 hardest bosses. The second one that might be surprising to a lot of people, although many complain about this, is in fact going to be the Nether Spider. Now, the Nether Spider is something that's been around since the initial and original release of the Doom Tower. However, I still see tons and tons of people really struggling with this, being restricted to champions that don't AoE, because as we all know, if you do AoE, you are in for a world of pain. So the third and final one I want to talk about, and of course many of the bosses are difficult, but the third one that really stood out to me, the Eternal Dragon. Now I do personally believe the Eternal Dragon is probably the easiest of the 3 I've mentioned so far to deal with. However, if you're not very specific with how you deal with it, you can run into tons of problems, and it can be a nightmare of a wall that you're just slamming your head against, and it's not going to be fun for anybody. So for these first claims here, I definitely want your guys' feedback. How do you feel about the 3 I picked? Do you think the Scarab should be there? I elected not to put in the Scarab because Destroy Gear's become popular since it's been out. People kind of understand how to deal with it. Many champions can in fact fill the role of applying a shield, reapplying the shield, having the decrease max health on the gear set of Destroy set, and not needing a champion that does it on its own. It's also given life to champions like Coldheart and others who have had their enemy max HP nerfed in the Doom Tower and in other places of the game, specifically stage 25 dungeons. Now they can kind of resurface and reuse them for the specific use of doing as much damage as they possibly can to the Scarab while applying that decrease max HP, making it a lot easier for some players. So with that being said, let's head straight in game here. Don't mind the name MurderInc there. I had a friend hop on the account earlier and he thought I would not notice what he did there. Touche, my friend, I do see you. I will keep that. That was a solid troll for sure. Now we're gonna head straight to the Doom Tower. Of course, I don't keep up with it as best as I should, but the first one I want to talk about is the Celestial Griffin. Now, of course, I am on floor 10 of hard, so this isn't going to look that difficult, but kind of just to run you guys through this encounter here and why so many people struggle with it. I'm actually using my clan boss team. I have the preset to the AI that I currently use in my clan boss team, but let's just take a look at these champions. Krisk, Dracomorph, Brogni, Double Lonicus. I'm pretty much talking to 0.0001% of the player base. So if you can't do this, you can kind of understand how difficult a boss like this is going to be. And my approach here is very different than most other approaches. With this team comp, I kind of just threw this in saying, I hope this really works. And I'm using ally attack to pretty much burn the boss before it can kill me. Now this does also work on the highest stages of the Celestial Griffin. However, it's not unlocked right now, so I cannot show that, but this is not a realistic team to show people. You kind of have to go through the passives, see what this guy does, and like I said, you can have the champions if you don't have the gear, if you don't have the proper speed tuning or knowledge of how every single, first of all, look at how insane this is. Just looking at the top of the list there, you could see how crazy it is for all of the passives, all of the different interactions this boss in fact has that you have to consider when making this. It definitely overwhelms a lot of players. So with that being said, that's probably why I'm leaning towards the Celestial Griffin being the hardest boss and therefore content in this game, while really the hardest content is going to be the Doom Tower overall. Thankfully, there are bosses such as the Magma Dragon that I think is quite simple. Using any kind of provoke champion pretty much makes the guy useless as long as your provoking champion has enough accuracy and can keep that boss CC'd, which isn't something that you can most commonly do. So like I said, definitely give me your feedback. Maybe you think some boss is much harder than I do. Make sure you're putting that in the comments because you never know. A lot of players might be able to agree with you. And like I said, the point of this video was to kind of express my feelings on what I thought was the hardest content in this game that you can't just pay to win your way through, but also to kind of connect the community because I've seen this topic over and over and over again. However, I've never seen a collective group of viewers kind of come together and really voice their opinion on what they all think and maybe can in fact agree on would be the hardest boss and part of this content overall. So as if those bosses that I talked about weren't annoying enough, everyone knows if you are going through hard or normal that there's always going to be one stage. Obviously not stage 29, that's just the one I'm going to do now. It's probably going to be a bit higher up. It could be lower depending on your account, but there's that one stage that just absolutely breaks your back when you're trying to get through it with the champions and the strategy you currently have. Now, once again, looking at this team, I am using an extremely overpowered team, making runs like this a lot easier than it's going to be for 99.9% of players. I just want to say it. Maybe the percentage is a little bit lower since seer concepts are not as foreign to people anymore. People kind of understand how they work now, but I do believe that some of these waves are definitely extremely difficult for a lot of players. So with that being said, we're on the final phase here and we can kind of see how easily we are flying through all of this content. And unfortunately, I took it off auto for some reason. I did think Elegaeus was going to mess things up, where he did make it a little bit longer, but not too much for it to matter by any means. So as we can see here, teams like this are very strong. Once again, not realistic for a lot of people. Even if you do have these champions, you're probably using them where they are considered meta. Prince Kymar, Seer, very strong for places like speedrunning dungeons. Prince Kymar, as we all know, one of the strongest arena champions in the game. Lydia, she can be used in many dungeons and she will have double use in the Doom Tower, that is good. Krisk, not so much. There's definitely lots of replacements for Krisk in this team, but for my specific setup here, there's a lot that goes on, and if you don't have access to these champions, you could be looking at 5-minute, 6-minute runs per floor, which kind of, in my opinion, might take a lot of fun away out of the whole process here. If things start taking 10 minutes per wave, let's look at this. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 minutes, not including the boss that could take 15 minutes. So this time adds up quickly, and we're not even looking at secret rooms because, as I mentioned before, secret rooms are a pain for everybody, especially when we're talking about hard. So with all of that said, this is why I am labeling Doom Tower, Doom Tower Hard, Doom Tower Easy. It really depends on what player level of progression you are currently on here. Is in fact the hardest part of this game that you cannot simply pay to win your way through. Definitely let me know what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? If so, why do you disagree? And this is also a very important talking point because we are getting an additional Doom Tower rotation very soon. I do look forward to that test server because the Doom Tower loses its spark for me personally because I can do the test server early on, see all the content, so when it comes out it's not as fresh. However, I do get that feeling on the test server, which is why I am looking forward to it, making some guides. I've noticed that my Celestial Griffin guide and my Eternal Dragon guide are quite popular among the community on YouTube right now. So I will be making those guides for the other champions based on what I've seen for the feedback on how you guys are responding to those guides. Anything I can do to help, I absolutely am going to. And one thing to know that I do a little bit different than most people as far as content creators making content and guides for these bosses, I'm never going to go into a guide here and say, okay, I'm going to use 5 rares, 5 epics, this is what you can do. More likely than not, the gear is going to be extremely unrealistic. So what I would prefer to do is make an extremely whale team. This is something I did with my last ones and it actually resonated quite well with the community. And instead of explaining to you what gear I'm using on the champions I'm using to clear it very quickly, if you're a whale, you can definitely go for it, copy what I have, do it, get some of the fastest times you'll ever see for that boss the day it comes out. However, when I use OP champions, it's mostly because it lets me survive long enough to be able to fully explain and show the interactions between the boss and the champions I do have in front of me. And a lot of people picked that up. There were a few people that were kind of hating on the video, saying, hey, this is just a whale team, I can't do anything with this. They were clearly watching the video on mute because it's really important that you understand the interaction, like I just said, between the champions you have and the boss. That is the only way to defeat this because you cannot pay your way through it. You cannot simply just have the best champions, throw them in random gear and say, okay, this is going to work on full auto. I do kind of like this concept. I think it does add a little bit more challenge to the game that really isn't there in many other aspects of the game. But that is how I choose to approach these guides so people can play it to their roster because every single account is going to be different. No matter if I use 5 rares, 5 epics, if you're missing just one of those, the team will not work. So I do feel like it is a waste and kind of a clickbait to say full rare team. If you don't even have one of the rares, then you can't make it. So you're really helping, once again, just a small group of people. It might be bigger than using a group of 5 legendaries. However, it's still too small in my opinion. And I think this is why my past videos have done so well. Alright guys, as always, thanks for watching the video. I do appreciate the support. Don't forget to like this video, comment, subscribe, turn on that notification bell if you haven't already. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next upload.